Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After we run you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. So, on today's show, I really want to get into a big topic that has really popped up. After we get through the news, I want to get into this. It's bothering me. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about the Tua situation. So I'm excited to talk about that. We have a lot to talk about in today's show. A lot of news to talk about. So let's get into this first news story. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Let's get out of the way quick because everybody's probably sick of hearing about it. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins are expected to be in the mix for Deshaun Watson. We already know this, but it was confirmed. Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald notes GM Chris Greer indicated after the 2020 season that Tua would be the Miami starter, but a report has said the Dolphins will be in the mix, from the Miami Herald, will be in the mix for Deshaun Watson and will at least make an offer. And that's something that we haven't talked about before. So just because Chris, and we've talked about this before, just because Chris has indicated that Tua is expected to be a starter, I guess this report is just saying, despite that, the Dolphins are still interested in making an offer on Deshaun. So it's more of an official thing now. A lot of it before was rumors, but officially it appears that the Dolphins are interested in Deshaun Watson, which makes a lot of people... I guess it's kind of split down the middle. I would say in the Dolphins fan community, it's split down the middle, if I had to guess. That people that are for Tua and people who aren't. Not necessarily aren't for Tua, but just want Deshaun Watson. It doesn't mean they don't like Tua. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors, and a very interesting one, because we've actually talked about this before on the show, like years ago, or at least it was a year ago, maybe last offseason. But I know we've talked about this before. Xavien Howard appears in police report concerning shooting at former agent's home. Dolphins cornerback Xavien Howard appears in an official incident report concerning a shooting at his home of his former agent, which happened in June of 2020. So yeah, it was last year. Howard's name is misspelled in the report, but it's clear that he is the person being referenced. So, I guess the bullet had went through, I don't know, it says... It doesn't even say he was involved in the shooting. It just says in the police report his name was referenced. Okay, so I don't really know why they also put in here that the bullet went through the 12-year-old's room, which is very unfortunate, obviously. I don't want to get into too much of this, but it only references his name. So I don't really know what they're trying to say, if he was involved in it, if he was actually there. If maybe, like I said, if he was involved and he wasn't actually there, but he had something to do with the people being at his agent's home, who knows? It doesn't mean he did anything wrong. We'll see what happens. I would like to know if Xavien Howard was the only famous player connected to him, or if there were other players connected to him, because I think that's interesting too. Maybe this was... I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. But I don't think this is going to affect, depending on how all this stuff works out, I don't think, as of right now, it doesn't seem anything to be concerned about, in my opinion. Because it doesn't really seem like he is too heavily involved in the situation. We'll see what comes of it. Obviously, X has been in trade rumors before. I don't think it has anything... right here. I forgot to put this on the docket here. This is a follow-up to that story. I almost forgot about this. This also comes from Pro Football Rumors. Police case on shooting involving Xavien Howard closed. A story made headlines yesterday when it was reported that the Dolphins star cornerback Xavien Howard was mentioned in a police report concerning a shooting at his former agent's house. But it looks like it's going to turn out to be a nothing burger. So there you go. X is cleared. The whole thing's cleared. Had nothing to do with him. There you go. I completely forgot I had that on here. I apologize. So, there you go. There's the resolution to the story. X is fine. He's not going to get in trouble for anything. So, there you go. This next news story, I hope that wasn't too confusing. Because I try to make this as smooth as possible. This comes from Pro Football Rumors, this next news story. Like pretty much all of our news stories. The Dolphins lose $8 million in cap space. So, this is after the carryover, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't watch or listen to last week's episode, we discussed the carryover and how it affects the Dolphins. So if you know about the carryover, this is after the carryover. So minus the $8 million that we earned from the carryover, if you know what I'm saying. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. So let's get into this report. Again, This report comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins lose $8 million in cap space after the carryover. I don't know why I yelled and emphasized the $8 million, but there you go. Although the Dolphins have not signed a single player to a standard 2021 contract this month, the club has lost about $8 million in cap space, as Barry Jackson and Adam Beasley of the Miami Herald report. That's because a few players hit incentives in their contracts that increased their 2021 cap charges. For instance, wide receiver Devontae Parker 2021 cap number is increased from $11 million to $12 million, while safety Eric Rowe's number grew from $5 million to $6 million because he hit incentives. Miami now has $25 million in cap space. So there you go. It went from like $30 million to $25 million. It was like $30 plus million to $25 million. So it's not that bad. It sucks that we lost $8 million. And I really want to know what cap incentives Devontae Parker hit, because that must have been the easiest thing. It had to have been like receptions or something. It couldn't have been yards. I have no idea what incentives he hit. Maybe touchdowns? I don't know. But he doesn't deserve it. That's for sure. All right, where do we want to go next? Let's go here. And this is something that we've talked about before. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. There is mutual interest between Dolphins and Aaron Jones. Needing help at few skill position spots, the Dolphins have identified a high-end target. They are interested in running back Aaron Jones. Jones could certainly help in multiple areas, having excelled in 4 seasons with the Green Bay Packers. The Dolphins are on Jones' list, Jackson notes. As an upcoming team in the market that regularly attracts free agents, this should not be especially surprising. So there you go. Jones is interested in the Dolphins. We're interested in Jones. There's mutual interest there. Another thing to include in this report that wasn't included, Omar Kelly has said in his show that he does weekly with the Sun Sentinel that a lot of free agents are interested in going to the Dolphins. And we've seen that so far this offseason. We've seen Aaron Jones. We've seen Marvin Jones. Both Joneses have expressed interest in the Dolphins. There have been a few others. So it's nice to see that. It's nice to see that not only is this a great destination because it's Miami, but it's also, I think, a product of Brian Flores and what he's building in Miami as well. So I'm excited about that. Now, getting back to Aaron Jones. So let's get back in Aaron Jones. I have a lot of I was pulling up his stats. That's why I got quiet for a second. So my reaction to this is it's a mixed bag. It's depending on how much we're going to pay him. I think either way, if the Dolphins went with Najee Harris, obviously Najee would be cheaper for a longer period of time, which, to be honest with you, is the road that I would want to take because I love him as a player. He's going to be great. Aaron Jones is also a great player. So either way, whatever the Dolphins decide to do, you're getting a good player. You're getting a playmaker. Aaron Jones, just like Najee Harris, even something like Myles Gaskin can do as well, that he does very well, is he affects the passing game as well as the running game. So they're eating up yards from scrimmage, whether it's, again, through the pass or through the run, and that's something Aaron Jones does a lot of, and that's why I like him a lot. I think if I were to evaluate a running back and be interested in a running back in today's day and age, you have to eat up scrimmage yards. And I think whatever the Dolphins decide to do, both do that very well. If you look at Aaron Jones' stats, in 2019 he had over 1,000 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns. He also had, in the same year, over 400 receiving yards. And he had 3 touchdowns through the air on top of that. So he had a total of 19 touchdowns. So he's getting touchdowns in both areas of the field. This previous season in 2020, he increased his yardage by 100. He had still had over 1,000 yards. He had 9 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns with 355 receiving yards. So he's eating up the yardage on whatever he does. In his career, yards from scrimmage, he has almost 5,000 yards, which is awesome. So this is a guy that affects not only the passing game but the running game as well. And he runs with a lot of power. He's a former first-team All-Pro, and he runs with a lot of power for his size. The negatives to this, obviously, is do you want to invest cap space in order to running back that like this? Do you really want to invest in that? We've rarely seen over the last 5 years running backs change teams and other teams invest in other running backs. I guess the most notable one in the last 5 years was Le'Veon Bell, and clearly that didn't work out very well. So it really just becomes a question of, are you willing to invest in a running back in today's day and age through free agency, or would you rather do that through the draft? And I think most of us would say through the draft, because you're getting a talented guy who's in the prime of his career for very cheap, as opposed to you're getting to an established guy who you're going to have to invest a good amount and a good kind of piece of the pie of the salary cap too. So it really doesn't come from, is the guy talented or not? It just, do you want to invest your cap space in that area? And I would rather invest in other areas of free agency when you think about maybe a defensive lineman, maybe an extra defensive back, or a receiver, a high-end receiver, a high-end slot receiver, maybe like Adam Humphries, who was just cut. Someone like that, where you could probably get maybe two twos at receiver and draft Devontae Smith and really kind of round out that receiver core. So there's a lot of things you can do with the amount of cap space that we have. Not necessarily maybe spending it all on two superstars. You could kind of get a lot of really solid players in a lot of different areas. And not to mention, we're going to talk about this later, players like Orlando Brown, who are up for a trade. Maybe you want to fit him into your long-term plans. You have Jerome Baker who's up for an extension. So there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration when you invest into a superstar like Aaron Jones, who is going to take a good amount of your cap. And he plays the running back position. The positive to that is that you would be getting a running back who is in his early 20s, who not only is a great running back, but he can also help you out in the passing game. And like I said, he's got a very unique skill set for his size. He's very fast, got a lot of pop, but he's also runs with a lot of power as well. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot to take into consideration when you think about Aaron Jones. I'm definitely in the camp of I would rather draft one, but if the Dolphins decide to go this route, I don't necessarily think I'm going to be completely upset about it. I don't think I'm going to be tearing the organization apart for a move like that. And I can completely understand why you would do it. He is a perfect modern running back for the modern game. So let's get into the next news story. The Russell Wilson stuff. Who cares? This is probably like the least important news story on this. If you don't know, Russell Wilson is listed of teams that he would like to go to. The Dolphins were not on that list. It has been reported that he would not like to be traded to the Dolphins at this point in time. And honest to God, who cares? I really don't care. I mean, he had the Bears on his list, for God's sakes. We're a better football, and I mean, not only are we a better ran organization, we have a brighter future, and to be honest with you, we're a better football team. So, we're not we don't have cap issues like they do, and we definitely have more draft capital than they do, and we have a better young nucleus than they do. I don't know. I don't want to get into that because who cares? If you said, hey, who do you want, Russell Wilson or I was going to say Devontae Parker, Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson? It's, to be honest with you, if I'm trading multiple first-round picks for a player, he better be in his early 20s or his mid-20s at least. Trading that much of your future for someone who's in his 30s is a little bit more dangerous. Not that I would be opposed to it, because Russell Wilson is a fantastic player, but when you put him against someone who's 25 and just as good as he is, then it becomes a no contest. You would go with the 25-year-old who is just as good as him in Deshaun Watson. So who would I would rather have? It's not even close. It's Deshaun Watson. So and honestly, I would rather have Tua than Russell Wilson. I know that a lot of people probably would freak out about that, but I think I could definitely, I don't know. The Tua Russell Wilson debate is, I think, different than the debate of Tua versus Deshaun Watson, in my opinion. So let's move on from that. And let's get into the Orlando Brown stuff. So if you don't know, Orlando Brown has asked for a trade. He's on the trade block for whatever reason. He wasn't happy with his positional switch that he, I guess, had to go through last year. And he wants to be traded. So, to be honest with you, there are two insanely crucial moves that the Dolphins could make. If you're on the camp that, the Dolphins need to improve their offensive line, I could totally push back on that point And I guess we'll do that right now. So if you're in the camp of the Dolphins need to get better offensive linemen, they need like some people want obviously to get Sewell from Oregon with the top 3 pick. That's a heavy investment. If you're trying to invest that much of the offseason into a position that you've already addressed last year with a lot of capital, and I want to make that clear that they did that last year, my pushback on that is the pass protection was good. And a stat came out last week, I think it was, or this week. Tua was only pressured 14% of his snaps. Okay? That's not bad at all. Okay? At all. Number 2, they started running the ball really, really well at the end of last year. Okay? They really did. I mean, the run game was getting a lot better as the year went on. So, you got to take, and everybody brings up the whole thing like, oh, you got to give Tua time. What about the offensive linemen they just drafted? And some of the young talent that they have there. Why not give them time? Why not give Austin Jackson time? They just drafted a left tackle. They just drafted a right tackle. And Robert Hunt, who will eventually be the right tackle. And he did fine when he played that position. He actually did a lot better in the passing game than I thought he would. So I just don't understand some of the contradictions that some of the fans have with like, oh, we can give Tua time, but what about the 3 good offensive linemen they just drafted last year, and Solomon Kindley, Robert Hunt, and Austin Jackson? Why can't you give them time to improve? And they didn't do bad last year. They did for rookies, they did pretty good, and they got better as the year went on. I am against the whole let's invest the entire offseason into the offensive line again. I don't think that's. I don't know. I think they need to get playmakers. And really, I don't think the offensive linemen last year did anything to tell you that they wouldn't get even better the next year. Remember, the same argument you guys make for Tua, and I don't want to say you guys, I make the same argument, because I make the same argument for Tua, but I don't, it seems to me, like I said, that everybody doesn't really make the same argument for the offensive linemen. They also didn't have an offseason. Your left tackle, Austin Jackson, didn't play football and didn't have an offseason for 2 years. I should say he didn't have an offseason for 2 years. And he still played very well, despite that. And they didn't have an offseason. Just like Tua didn't have an offseason. And remember, Robert Hunt was coming off an injury as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, you have to take that into account as well. And again, they got better as the year went on. So, I am not in the camp that we have to invest a huge chunk of this offseason into that at all. I think you let those guys develop. I think you invest in Tua and get him as many playmakers as you possibly can. The only issue was not the pass protection. It was the running game. And the running game was getting better as the year went on. And I think I have faith in that offensive line that they will get better. If you don't have faith in that offensive line, I think there is a better avenue to fix it if you're in that camp than drafting Sewell in the top 3. If you look, Penei Sewell, I think that's how you say his name. If I'm saying it wrong, I apologize. So the Orlando Brown trade, you could easily get a stud right tackle right there. Great in the run game as well. He's actually a better run blocker than he is a pass protector. Then you look at Corey Linsley, who plays the center position, obviously, who's a first-team All-Pro from the Green Bay Packers. He's a free agent. So right there, you shouldn't have to invest farther than that. You already have Austin Jackson. You can move Robert Hunt inside at guard. You can keep Solomon Kindley at guard or Eric Flowers. It doesn't really matter. And then you can plug in Lindsey. Or if you don't even want to do that, you can move Jesse Davis to center if you don't want to get Corey Linsley. So there is moves to be made to improve the offensive line. You know, Isaiah Wilson is out there, not necessarily the biggest. I don't really know. That to me, that would be so stupid if the Dolphins did that. Because the guys that they had, he's going into year 2 as well. And you already have investments there on the offensive line. They're young. So to me, that's kind of dumb. Getting an established player like Orlando Brown and then Linsley from the Green Bay Packers is a good way to do it, and you still have a lot of draft capital to address. And to be honest with you, and I've said this before, the offensive playmakers in this draft I think are the strongest group in the draft, in my opinion, especially in the first round when you think about Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, and Najee Harris, and some of the tight ends that you could get like Kyle Pitts. I think those are prime candidates for first-round picks for the Dolphins, and they can really just use those picks on playmakers. If they win, if you're in the like I said, I don't think the Dolphins need to do anything offensive line wise, in my opinion. Maybe you get some second to third round guys. Maybe you get some solid backup free agents to add depth to the group. But I don't think you necessarily need to use a top 3 pick on that position. That's just my opinion. And again, I think the argument of the offensive lineman last year who used first-round picks on and a second-round pick, and obviously you got Solomon Kinley, who was a really nice surprise last year, and letting them continue to get better, I think you got to take that. It's not even really a gamble. I mean, they didn't show you anything that they wouldn't continue to improve. So, but if you are a part of the group that you think the offensive lineman needs to be improved, I think getting Orlando Brown and Corey Linsley in free agency, if they don't end up franchise tagging him, I think is a good move, in my opinion. If not a good, I don't know. It's not the move I would make, but if you're going down that road, I think that road is the best road to go down. Because if you get Sewell from Oregon, are you moving Austin Jackson to right tackle? Why? He's a great pass protector. Not the greatest physical player in the world, but he was outstanding in pass protection last year. And they have obviously numbers to back that up. Then you go to the other side. I mean, I guess you put Orlando Brown there. That right side becomes even more stronger to run through. And you get Corey Linsley, who obviously would replace either Ted or Jesse Davis there, depending on what the Dolphins want to do at center. Or Michael Dieter. So, again, it's really just your opinion on the matter and what your preference is and what you think about the young players on the offensive line. All right, so let's get into the big topic, ladies and gentlemen. And the topic today is a mixture of the Tua situation and the hate that he's getting this offseason. And and we've talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again because it just bothers the heck out of me. I have to get it out somehow. The whole notion that Stephen Ross picked Tua, okay? And I don't want to get into too much of it because we've talked about and ranted about it before. But I'm going to talk about it again. So let's start with the Stephen Ross stuff and get that out of the way. Here are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. Here are the cold, hard facts. And I don't care what these guys say on NFL, and NBC, and ESPN. Here are the cold, hard facts. Out of all of the years and rumors and reading beat writer articles on this show, not one time has that ever been brought up that Tua was an owner's pick. Not only that, but again, I will bring it up again. Lamar Jackson would be a Dolphin if Stephen Ross controlled the draft. He wanted Lamar Jackson. Adam Gase didn't. Minkah Fitzpatrick was the pick. Okay? So that to me, and nobody else brings that up because it doesn't fit their narrative and what they want to talk about. Or they just didn't do enough research. I don't know. But again, that's the biggest debunker of that I can possibly bring up. And if you think that Stephen Ross was just going to tell Brian Flores what to do, and out of nowhere, this is the first time, not the first time he's done it as an owner. I will not say that because he was a big part of the Sue signing and the Mike Wallace signing. But he stopped doing that. And Omar Kelly has reported on that, by the way. And again, if he was a huge factor into us picking Tua, we would know about it. And again, if he controlled the Dolphins drafts, Lamar Jackson would be a Dolphin right now. So I just want to get that out of the way. I hate hearing that. I cannot stand it. You know, I was watching NFL News NBC today, and I love Chris Sims and his show. I love that show a lot. And he goes, you know, this is what happens when you let an owner make a draft pick. It's like, no, that did not happen. So I just want to clear that because this organization is ran much better than it used to be. And we've had no credible reports or even results on the field to think otherwise. This was a Chris Grier pick. Chris Grier, before the draft, was reportedly in love with Tua for 2 years. Okay? That was a report before he was drafted. So this was a Chris Grier, Brian Flores pick. Okay? Had nothing to do with the owner. And whether Tua is good or not, it doesn't matter. But that part of it makes me upset because it implies that Brian Flores and Chris are not running the organization and not making the decisions. Because trust me, they are. That's why we've seen these results on the field. Okay? So I just wanted to get that out of the way. The other thing I want to get out of the way. The whole thing And this is something that was said on this show today, and I've heard from other outlets as well. They said that Tua can never be as talented as Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. It'll never happen. It'll never happen. First of all, and one of the reasons he says this is he just doesn't have the talent, or he doesn't make big-time NFL throws like they do. I think that is a stupid and presumptuous statement that doesn't make any sense. He brings up the fact that they had to hold to his hand, and he never showed flashes of the ability to take over a game. He clearly didn't watch the Chiefs game, okay, where Tua made a lot of plays in that game. And again, this is something that the fans bring up all the time, and it's true. Why does no one remember the Cardinals game? Why does that just blink out of everybody's mind? Like it never happened. It doesn't make any sense. The dude is the only reason we won that game. Okay, the only reason we won the game was because of him. So if I hear again that he can't carry a team, he can't make plays outside of the system, watch the Cardinals game. Watch the Cardinals game. He didn't have an offseason. He was in a terrible system offensively that did not have an identity and was so predictable and bad. It was unreal for most of that year last year. Okay? He didn't have a run game at all. But when we talk about Justin Herbert and we talk about, oh, this is the reason why his team didn't win, we give him 50,000 excuses. The coaching decisions were awful. His defense was terrible. I'm sorry. I forgot that this dude didn't have all of this talent on offense. And he did succeed in that. I'm not saying he didn't. But why do we give him 50 million excuses, but Tua doesn't get any? Tua doesn't get any of those excuses. He just gets, oh, look how much worse he is than these other two. And I've brought this up before. If you look at, I'm talking about Hall of Fame quarterback numbers, the first few years they were in the league, they're awful. Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Eli Manning. Like, there's a lot of guys I could bring up that did not have good numbers when they started out. Tua had better numbers than they did, and especially when you talk about win-loss. And I know that those guys didn't have the same teams that Tua did, but I'm just saying, if we're going to compare stats and bring up positive stats, then I'm going to bring up positive stats for Tua as well. So, it's frustrating. It doesn't make any sense to me. The fact that someone can sit here and say that Tua will never be as good as those two players, I think is crazy. Maybe he doesn't have the same talent that they do, but to say that he can't be as good as them is insane. If we remember, of course everybody remembers, when everybody said that Tom Brady didn't have any talent. I'm just bringing that up as an example. There have been other players in the past. Russell Wilson's too short. There have been other players in the past that have had physical limitations that have been amazing in their careers. But you can't, I just think that's a stupid statement, and it's not true. And the thing to bring up that Tua never did any of that, he never made big time plays. He's not capable of doing things like that. That's not true. You just didn't watch the season last year. I don't know what else to tell you. He made amazing plays in the Cardinals game, and even in the Chiefs game, which a lot of people forget about. And he doesn't have any He doesn't have any weapons on the outside at all. And Chris brings up Devontae Parker. Even when Devontae Parker is healthy. I'm talking about Chris Sims on the show. He brought up Devontae Parker as one of the weapons for Tua. Even when he's healthy, he's not very good. He's not a number one receiver. I shouldn't say he's not very good. He's just not a number one receiver. And he's not a number one receiver consistently. And we can blame it on injuries all we want, but it just hasn't been the case since he's got here in Miami. He has great moments and great games, but he just cannot consistently do it. And that's why he only has 1,000-yard season. And, again, if we point out let's make excuses for Tua for once. He didn't have an offseason. His offensive skill positions were god-awful. And despite that, he still put up, 35 points against the Cardinals or whatever it was. And the system was not very good. It was okay. It was fine. I just feel like Tua gets kind of a bad rap, and I just wanted to make an argument. And again, like I said, people bring up 50,000 excuses for Herbert, and his roster was not bad. Burrow is a different conversation. His roster was bad, and he deservedly so. I'm not saying deservedly so not for Herbert, but why does nobody bring up excuses for Tua? Just because we won 10 games doesn't mean there weren't shortcomings of the roster. There were. And Brian Flores is a fantastic head coach. I just will say this. A lot changes in a year. I will say that. Trust me on that. Especially in sports. A lot changes in a year. So we'll see next year what happens. But I think some of the criticisms of Tua are not valid and not true. Like I said, to sit here and say that he never had any plays where to say that he can't make big time NFL throws and big time NFL plays. Maybe not necessarily. We saw in some insane throws like Mahomes or Herbert, but we did see some insane NFL plays from him in that Cardinals game where he was the reason why we got that first down. He was the reason we had that touchdown drive. We did see that. And to say that we never saw that is not true. All right, let's get into the fan Q&A, where we answer the fans' questions. Let's see here. This first question comes from KC Fanatic. He says, I heard Hyde and Kelly on the X's and Omar show say that they considered Parker the number one wide receiver. Other Dolphin shows say he is a good 2, and we need a number 1. Your thoughts? Also, I do not want a wide receiver in the first round. Change my mind. Okay, honest to God, change your mind. Did you not watch last year? Change your mind. Dude, the Bills, go watch the Bills game. We could not get off man coverage. If last season didn't change your mind, I'm not going to change your mind, Casey Fanatic. I'm just not going to change your mind. So, Dolphins number 1 receiver. Okay, so they said he was a number 1. He is not a number 1 receiver. He is not a number 1 receiver. He's not. We've seen enough. Let's just watch. Okay, I'm looking up Devon. Let's get some cold hard facts in here right now. Let's get some cold hard facts in here. The man has had 1,000-yard season. He was drafted in 2015. He's had, 7 seasons as a Dolphin? 6 seasons as a Dolphin. So, I don't know what else to say. He's only had 22 career touchdowns in 6 seasons. He's had 1,000-yard season. The whole thing, he's been injured and missed games. If you look at, so in 2015, he started 4 games, played in 14 games. 2016, played in 15 games, started in 8 games. 2017, played in 13 games, started in 12 games. 2018, played in 11 games, started 7 games. 2019, played in 16 games, which was his best year, started 14 of them. Had over 1,000 yards. 2020, played in 14 games, started 11 games. Okay, now granted, it's he played with injuries. I guess there's an excuse there. But his production is not that of a number 1 wide receiver. It's not just being able to play every single week. Well, it is that. That is a part of being a number 1 receiver. But it's actually putting up and obviously playing well and being productive. And that's just not what he has been. For someone who is a great 50-50 guy, he doesn't score touchdown. His ninth. Listen. Okay, let's go back through this. 2015, 3 touchdowns. 2016, 4. Okay. 2017, 1. 2018, 1. 2019, 9. 2020, 4. Okay, this is not a touchdown machine at all. He's never hit 10 yards per target. His best catching percentage was 60, which is good. His yards a game, his best is 75. His average is around is under his career average is about 50 yards a game, which is not good enough for if you're a number 1 wide receiver. You know how many 2s get over 50 yards, like really good 2s get over 50 yards a game in the league today, in today's NFL? The dude is barely giving us any touchdowns, dude. Ladies and gentlemen, we play 16 games. Other than his 9 touchdown year, 3, 4, 1, 1, 4. I don't know what the heck else we need to see from him. We need a number 1 wide receiver. We just need it. We don't have it on this. There is not one on the team. There isn't one. We need one. We need a playmaker. Go get Devontae Smith. Go get Jamar Chase. I want Jamar Chase. Go get Jamar Chase. He's a freak of nature. He's a great athlete. I just said he was a freak of nature. Follow that up with a great athlete. That's how good of an athlete he is. Go get him. We cannot deal with another season. Devontae Parker is not the answer, ladies and gentlemen. He's just not. To sit there and tell me, again, 6 seasons of Devontae Parker, to look at me in the eyes and say that he is a number 1 receiver is laughable. I had hope after 2019, but he followed that up with 2020, and we won 10 games, ladies and gentlemen. And again, Fitz played with him a good amount last year. He had an entire month with Fitz, for God's sakes. And he still wasn't putting up numbers. So don't give me the whole Fitz Tua thing, because that's not a thing. That's not true. I just read you the numbers. They got to do something about these receivers, dude. I can't. Malcolm Perry cannot get over 80% of the snaps in a game. He just can't. That just cannot happen. So, yes, the Dolphins need a receiver. And pick Jamar Chase, please. Or Devontae Smith. I don't care. They just need someone who's going to be consistently good year in and year out. If I had to sit here and read to you guys the top 10 receivers, and I'm not going to do that, but I could. The 10 best receivers, or even the 5 best receivers in the NFL, their stats are significantly better than that. Okay? Let's bring up, all right, just for argument's sake, after this I'm going to move on. But let's bring up someone like DJ Moore, okay, who is just drafted, and compare his stats to Devontae Parker's in 2 years. This is his stats in 3 seasons as a Panther. Okay? Again, 6 seasons with Devontae Parker. He has 22 career touchdowns. DJ Moore has 20... Okay, here, hold on. Let me look at this. He has 10 career touchdowns in 3 seasons. He has back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. His rookie year, he almost had 1,000 yards. His average yards a game... Where is this? Oh, by the way, let's not even get his yards from scrimmage, for God's sake. I know different skill sets. Hold on, I cannot find his yards a game for some reason. His catching percentage is better than Devontae Parker's. It's over 60. I can't find it. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why I can't see it. Anyway, his yards a game is going to be significantly better than Devontae Parker's. This is a guy that's a true number 1. He has, and again, that's something Devontae Parker has never done, is have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He's already done that, and he's barely played half the years that Devontae Parker has. And this is my point, is that's a number 1 receiver. That's a number 1 receiver who's young, okay? And he's averaged 1,000 yards from scrimmage since he was a rookie. Okay, that's someone that we need on this team. And again, that's really just my point, is like he's just not. Like, he's as good or the same as Robbie Anderson, who is not a number 1 receiver, by the way. At the very least, he's a very good 2. And, again, that's what Devontae Parker is. At the very least, a very good to good 2. Maybe just a good 2. I don't know why I can't find yards a game. Okay, here we go. His average yards a game. His yards a game. Last year he averaged, Devontae Parker's was 50. DJ Moore has 78. His career average is 70. It's 68.6. It's basically 70. That's over 20. That's 20 more yards he's getting you a game than. And he's not even a top. I wouldn't say DJ is a top 5 receiver. Let's look up who had a great year last year. I don't know. Maybe we should just stop here. The point is Devontae Parker is not a number 1 receiver. I mean, if you look up someone like Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill or anybody else, like, they're going to have way better numbers than that. Those are number 1 receivers. Devontae Parker is not a number 1 receiver. So we just have to stop. Because my point is if you compare his stats to number 1 receivers, they're not even close. Okay? They're not even close. And again, it's not even a debate. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey, Skaggs, if we were to trade Tua in the offseason for a quarterback, do you think it's worth it or no? I mean, if you traded him for Deshaun Watson, yes, it's worth it. But other than that, I really don't. To answer your question, Beef, I don't think it would be. There would be any other good trade-off there for sure. This next question comes from Stefan. He says, I would absolutely include Xavien Howard in a trade to get either Watson or Wilson. Elite cornerbacks get traded and played in multiple teams all the time. Elite quarterbacks generally do not. I agree with that. I do agree with that. That's a good thing to say there. I mean, he's right. I mean, elite quarterbacks definitely do not get traded like that. This next question comes from SM. He says, I was just reading over Drew Brees' contract restructure for 2021. It looks like he reworked it in a way so that when he is cut on June 1st, the cap won't be so bad. That being said, I think if the Dolphins were to offer him, say, $8 million to be a backup/coach to Tua, might go for it, as I think he still enjoys playing. No, I don't know. The whole, I think you just got to let Tua go. I don't think you have to have someone breathing down his shoulder necessarily, especially someone like Drew Brees. I don't think that's necessarily good for his rookie year 2. This next question comes, especially with the fans and Drew Brees is not better than Tua right now. Everybody's going to freak out right now, but it's true. It just physically, he's just not even close to being the same that he used to be. This next question comes from SM. Skaggs, have you looked at the schedule? First 2 games on the road, and then 8 games in a row, then last 6 on the road. Thoughts? I don't think, has the schedule been released? I don't think it has. We don't know the order of the games yet. I think you were just looking at the teams that we were going to play. I don't think the schedule, I could be wrong. I don't think the schedule has been released though yet. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey Skaggs, with the recent news on Xavien Howard, would you still keep him or trade him? If trade him, do you think he's worth a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks? Well, the recent news was not true. Obviously, his name was cleared, so I think X is worth a first-round pick at least, yeah. He's a first-team All-Pro, so yeah. So I don't know if he's worth 2 first-round picks. I don't know if you could get something like that for him, but he's definitely worth a first-round pick. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey Skaggs, who do you think is a better option for a quarterback, Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, and why? Well, Deshaun Watson is a better option. He's just as good as Russell Wilson, and he's way younger. So that would be the reason. This question comes from SM. He says, I've heard a rumor that the Texans are not so high on Tua as a part of the package for Watson. Do you see a way that the Dolphins trade for Watson and keep Tua as well? No, that's not going to happen, and that's not true. There's a report that we read and talked about on the show that was after the report that the Texans are not interested in Tua, and we read a report that Nick, what's his name, Caserio, whatever his name is, obviously coming from New England, is very high on Tua, so that's not true. Maybe both reports aren't true. I don't know. Who knows? But we read a report contradicting that report, so I can't say the other report's not true, but we read a report contradicting that. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, what is something Miami could do in the first round of the draft that would leave you disappointed? I don't know if I would be disappointed if we took Sol or Pinobs or whatever his name is from Oregon. But he's not a better prospect than Jamar Chase, that's for sure. I would say probably that. I think I would be disappointed. I'd be like, wow. I mean, I think people are listening to the media a little bit too much about how good this guy is, and I think that can get a little bit dangerous. I think if you compare prospect to prospect, who's a better prospect, Jamar Chase, to me, is a better prospect than Sewell. Even though, and again, we're talking about a tackle that hasn't played in a year because he opted out. And neither is Jamar Chase, but I think the tackle thing is a little bit different. Or you could go to Devontae Smith. So I think I would be a little bit more disappointed in that. This next question comes from Salt. He says, I'm a huge draft person, but it seems like this is the hardest one to predict for the Dolphins. He says, it also seems like everyone has their own opinion on what to fix, which is right. But I have not seen a legitimate game plan. Do you have one that maybe you could share using free agency in the draft? Well, I shared it last week's episode. I said that I think if you went defensive focused in free agency, where there's a lot of really good veteran defensive players that are still kind of young. You think about J.C. Jackson, Patrick Peterson, Stephon Gilmore, who's rumored to be cut, Von Miller, J.J. Watt. There's Melvin Ingram, Jalen Smith is rumored to be let go, although those rumors have been kind of pushed back on. There's a lot of really good young players. Matt Milano from the Bills, who's going to test free agency, who's a good young linebacker. There's a lot of really good defensive free agents in this class, and to me, when you look at the free agents or the top prospects defensively in the draft, I mean, you just invested in Igbenogany. Do you really want Asante Samuel Jr. or Patrick Surtain or the corner from LSU? Do you really necessarily think those guys are going to make that big of a difference when you could get J.C. Jackson or Stephon Gilmore, Patrick Peterson if you want a defensive back, or if you want a defensive lineman? There's plenty of those in free agency. So I think if you went defensive focused in free agency and then really invested in playmakers in the draft, you could get your offensive linemen in the later rounds, in the second or third round. You could invest in playmakers with the first 2 picks in the draft. So I think if you want a philosophy in terms of a game plan, I like that idea. I like the idea of that a lot. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, "Hey Skaggs, how many Super Bowl trophies is one perfect season worth?" Probably 2 or 3. I don't know. I have no idea. Every Super Bowl is amazing. This next question comes from Ricky. He says, "Does it blow your mind that some Dolphins fans are against the idea of trading for Watson or Russell Wilson?" Yes, it does actually. It does blow my mind. And I'm being serious. I'm not joking around. That does blow my mind. I don't understand. You guys, we watched Brock Osweiler for a year. I know that we drafted Tua, but who cares, dude? It's Deshaun Watson. He's a superstar. It's like getting LeBron James, for God's sakes. The dude is amazing. I don't understand why that's such a problem for people to understand. It's worth everything you give up to get him. I don't understand it either. It blows my mind. He says, do the same fans enjoy mediocrity or misery? That's what I'm saying. I don't understand. You guys have watched the same football that I've seen, especially if you're listening to this podcast. You got to be pretty hardcore. Listening to an hour of this, you have to be someone who's watched a full season of Dolphins for a long time. And to sit here and be against that is insane. If you guys can give me one example of when a team got another superstar quarterback from another franchise and it didn't work, I'm all ears. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's never happened before. Tom Brady, it worked. Peyton Manning, it worked. Kurt Warner, it worked. Even when he was with the Giants, it worked. They would have went to the playoffs if they didn't bench him. Who else am I forgetting? It's literally worked every single time. And those guys weren't even 25 when they were traded. They were older. So to push back against it is insanity to me, because you cannot give me an example where it hasn't worked. And you can't say that this team isn't ready for that because they just won 10 games. So it doesn't make any sense to me. He goes on to say, "It's been 20 plus years since Marino retired, and we've had the longest drought in the NFL without a quarterback going to the Pro Bowl. Quarterbacks of that caliber are never available for trade." Hallelujah. Keep preaching that. I wish we would have started the show with that, because it's true. It's so true. And I don't understand. You guys cannot, honest to God, you guys cannot argue. And I already know what you guys are going to say. We still need pieces. We just won 10 games. I don't know how many more pieces that you need. We still have cap space. We still have a lot of draft picks that won't affect the future of our drafts. It doesn't make any sense to me. You know what? I'm sick and tired. Here's what I'll say. I'm sick and tired of watching bad quarterback play. And not saying that Tua's a rookie. We watched a rookie quarterback who showed a lot of promise. This does not include Tua. I'm sick and tired of it, though. And I want some, I think we as fans, as a fan base, deserve better. This next question comes from Jack Pack. He says, might be popular, but I say trade Axel while you can. His off-the-field issues are worrying, not to mention all the knee injuries that he's had. He won't be easy to replace, and he's a special player, no doubt, but I trust the team to replace him. We are wrong, because the off-field issues are not an issue. But the knee issues, I think, is, I guess, a valued argument a little bit. Yeah, I could see that being concerning, for sure. But the off-field issues are not an issue. This next question comes from Richard, but I wouldn't trade X. I just wouldn't trade him. We're trying to build. We're not trying to replace someone. We have other holes on the team. Let's not get rid of someone just to try to replace him. That doesn't make any sense. This next question comes from Richard. He says, what about the Dolphins bringing in Alex Smith as a backup to Tua? He probably would be cut by Washington. Listen, everybody wants to bring in these high, well-known backup quarterbacks, but they're not willing to give you Deshaun Watson. And I know it's completely different. I understand that. But, I mean, I'm not opposed to getting someone who is capable, obviously. So that wouldn't be terrible. I think Alex Smith would be fine. I think that would be okay. But anyway. And one thing I want to bring up before we leave the podcast, where it was the whole thing about everybody not wanting to get Deshaun Watson. I would understand it if it was like the entire fan base was like, let's go get Zach Wilson. Then it's an argument to be had. Like, that's dumb. But the Deshaun Watson thing is just insane to me that people are so offended by that, and I don't understand how people get so ride or die for a particular player when we could. Like, if, I defended Tannehill for years, but if someone was like, you could have Deshaun Watson or something, I'd be like, yeah, kick Tannehill out the door. Like, it doesn't, it's about winning. It's not about these allegiances to people, and I don't know. It's just weird. It's just weird. We want to watch the Dolphins win. That's it. And it's whatever helps them win is what we want, and Deshaun Watson helps them win. And helps them contend for championships for years to come. So anyway, that's it. I know I've been yelling. I hope I didn't come off kind of. It has nothing to do with your questions. I'm just upset about all the other stuff that we talked about. It's stupid, and it's just dumb. It's like I hate when people don't have. It's not a fact, right? But they say it like it is. Like, that stuff really bothers me. Like, I could be completely wrong about some of the stuff that, opinion based or whatever it is, but to say it like it's fact is just insane to me. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Very excited about this offseason though, and very excited about it. I can't wait. And I'll see you guys in the next one.